So you guys ever go on Facebook? Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I usually use it just to share stuff about dogs that I'm trying to network to help them find a home, or wolf dogs that need a home. But I'm also involved in groups that talk about what's going on with wolves in various places. And right now, mainly in Colorado. And you would not believe the kind of stuff people post. I mean, I'm probably going to share some screenshots in this video so you guys can take a look. And I don't know, maybe if you want to, well, there are things people can do to find out about people and potentially expose their bad acts. Let me put it that way. But I post information about wolves. I post commentary about how coexistence is a lot more sensible than killing wolves, especially in the interest of private business operations like small ranching operations that are running into challenges with wolves, but are also refusing to do what we call non-lethal coexistence strategies. It's actually relatively simple. I'm not saying it's easy. It requires work for sure, but it's relatively simple to protect livestock. But ranchers have had it real easy in most of the United States for over 100 years, and we've essentially killed every predator that can impact the ranching industry. And now that wolves are coming back, they sustain trivial, and when I say trivial losses, I'm talking about tenths of a percent in comparison to losses associated with other things. For example, thousands of cows, calves, steers die every year from things like respiratory disease. They step in a hole and they break a leg and they have to be euthanized. Birthing complications. There are many, many causes of mortality. And this is especially true. Watch out, watch out. You're going to have a wolf in the house. See, this is what happens here. He's quick. He sees the door open and he wants to bolt inside and get on the counter. Don't you, Noonie? We got you that time. But what I'm saying is that wolves in general represent a tiny, tiny fraction of the things that kill cattle that are grazed on open range. And a lot of that open range is public land, and the ranchers get a super cheap. And when I say super cheap, I'm talking about they pay $1.35 per cow calf pair per acre. It's kind of a complicated metric, but what it boils down to is that if they were leasing private land, the same land would be about $17 per cow calf pair, and instead it's $1.35. It's a discounted rate that the government subsidizes for these entities. So they should be stewards of the land, but it's quite clear from scientific research, and particular research done by Western Watersheds Project. Eric Molvar is a friend of mine. He's a biologist, and Western Watersheds looks at the impact of livestock on land. And there's no doubt whatsoever that in spite of their claims that they're stewards of the land and that they improve the condition of the land, that everywhere cattle are grazed, it impacts, seriously impacts the health and the carrying capacity of that land for every other species. And that's especially true of things like elk and deer and pronghorn that are outcompeted by livestock that are placed on those landscapes for the peak of the growing season in very high density, much higher density than the land can actually normally carry. And they outcompete the other animals, and then you have a vicious cycle where if there are predators on the landscape, those animals are now in a situation where their food source has been chased away and they're still there. And so, of course, they're going to turn to whatever's available. I mean, think about it like this, right? I mean, if we don't, if we run out of beef and we got chicken in the fridge, well, maybe chicken isn't our favorite, but we'll roast a chicken, if we don't have steaks. And so that's the same thing for any carnivorous mammal. We turn to the next available source of calories. But there are methods such as using livestock guarding dogs and using range riders, which is actually what cowboying used to be about. The song "Home, Home on the Range" was cowboys staying with their livestock to protect those livestock from predators. And this is sort of a lost art. We're trying to bring it back, but of course it costs money to have people do that work, and they're sort of specialized. They got to be pretty rugged individuals who want to be out in a pretty wild country day and night for weeks or months, keeping an eye on livestock and making sure that wolves don't get in. And that also holds true for mountain lions and grizzly bears, right? So can be done. A friend of mine in Canada who lives in a place with grizzly bears, mountain lions, and wolves, Alberta, has not sustained a single loss in more than a decade because he practices that kind of non-lethal, high-touch animal husbandry. But these guys don't want to do it, and so what we're seeing when I try to explain this in forums, for example, forums about the wolves in Colorado, is that people instead start talking about giving wolves lead poisoning or leaving antifreeze out. These are federal crimes. And the crazy thing is, these guys are posting under their own names in public forums and essentially announcing that they're interested in committing federal poaching crimes. Wildlife criminality is rampant in Colorado right now. Not limited to wolves, but the thing is that when people poach an elk, the hunting community gets all up in arms about it, and there's prosecutions. But when people poach wolves, it kind of gets swept under the rug. And these guys have been so emboldened by lack of enforcement, I'm not even sure, that they're actually willing to post under their own name and profile things like, "I'm going to leave out antifreeze, winter is coming," or "smoke a pack a day," which of course is their slang for killing wolves. And then they also post SSS, which stands for shoot, shovel, and shut up. And when I try to comment on this in ways that get people to rethink what they're doing, frequently what happens is I get death threats. My poor wife, she gets quite upset that I do this. I feel somewhat insulated, seeing as though I'm quite far away from those people, and we do live with a very heightened sense of awareness about property security, because I've been getting death threats since I was 8 years old. But my wife, who has now been with me, how long? 20-some. Yeah, she's even so, she can't quite adapt to, and I don't blame her. Like, you should not have to live with death threats, whether they're, online bravado or real. Many years ago, I did have some pretty serious consequences from people trying to harm me, both at a federal wolf hearing where I was beaten up pretty badly by 5 guys, cowboys, in a parking lot, but also personal consequences of people trying to harm animals because they wanted to get to me. So we're more insulated in our community now, and I think people would have to be pretty insane to try to harm us here. But I want to share with you guys some of these comments. You have an idea of this absurd anti-wolf craziness that is, and it's a certain group of guys too, right? It's there's women who make some fairly foolish remarks, but they're more about wolves are so cruel, right? Well, they're wolves, they're predators, they kill things with their teeth. I mean, primitive humans were probably way worse because we didn't kill things with our teeth. We probably piled on the things we were going to eat before we had tools, beat them with rocks, and ripped them apart with our bare hands. I think wolves are probably better. I'd rather go by wolves than a gang of unarmed humans, that's for sure. And what they also don't even think about is that without predation, then you have starvation, which is a worse, longer, lingering death that impacts many more animals. And you have disease, which in the wild is a terrible way to go because diseases don't get treated. They just weaken you till you die. So complaining about a natural cycle, and particularly a lot of these people tend to be in this sort of alt-right Christian, sort of, I don't even know what that is, this nationalist, weird, cultish kind of behavior. And I mean, if you truly believe in those things and you believe that God is all-knowing and all-powerful, then why did God create wolves? I mean, I'm not of that mindset myself. I believe in nature. I believe that if there is such a thing as God, it's simply the biological processes that produce this world and this universe and every living, breathing creature in it. It's all an inextricable web of life. But for those people that claim to be in this God-fearing mode, that when you have a particular hatred for a species, isn't that kind of contradictory to what exactly you're espousing as your spiritual beliefs? I mean, and the other thing is this reactionary behavior is nuts. There are 24 wolves in Colorado, millions of acres of wilderness, millions of cattle. I mean, they've lost a couple dozen, and most of those, they don't even know whether wolves killed them. I mean, they lose more cattle to theft by other ranchers or just outright loss. They go missing because they're not monitored. It's not like people put GPS collars. If they were so valuable, you'd think that they'd put GPS trackers on every single animal. I mean, they're not even expensive. I put GPS trackers on every one of my animals. Sonny, come here. Sonny, come here. She's more interested in mom and treats her now. Sonny, come here. Sonny, there's my Sonny. See, look, I have a GPS tracker on Sonny right there. I use the ones by Fi. I love these things, by the way. Absolutely love these things. If you're a dog person and you want to keep track of your dog, not just from location, but from health, from goes missing, like I love those things. That's an aside, of course, but they're not that expensive. I mean, if those animals are worth thousands of dollars a piece, which is what they claim, then they, by all means, should be buying tracking collars and keeping track of their inventory. I mean, that's what it is, right? It's, those are not family members. Those are meat on the hoof. That means it's inventory. I mean, stores put trackers on valuable inventory. Why don't ranchers put trackers on valuable inventory? But in any case, I'm going to share with you guys in this video, I'm going to intersperse some of them in here, I think, so you guys can actually have a look at the kind of things these people have been emboldened to say in public forums where they're in front of their family, their friends, their employers, federal officials, state officials are actually promoting the idea of committing federal and state crimes. And I'd love to hear what you think about it. And for those of you that are, inclined to dig deeper, you've got names, you've got faces, you've got profiles, you've got locations. You could certainly help those guys realize that, I mean, if you're going to commit a crime, you're going to commit a crime. But if you're going to commit a crime, it seems to me like the last thing you want to do is advertise that you're going to do it and put a giant red bullseye on your chest saying, yeah, I said I was going to poach wolves using antifreeze, and now there's wolves dying of antifreeze 4 miles from my house. I don't know. I mean, it's probably online bravado, but on the other hand, I screenshot everything and I send it to state wildlife officials so that when those things happen, those people are investigated and questioned. And by the way, there are significant rewards for helping bring to justice those kinds of people. Nonprofits contribute substantial funds to the identification, prosecution, and conviction of people that are poaching animals. And I mean, I don't know. And this is the thing I guess I just don't get at all. I mean, most of these guys that make these statements, they don't even know anything about wolves. They spout all this recycled garbage. When you try to educate them factually, which I do, with straight up science, they, give you laughy emojis, right? Like, this is what I do. It's what I studied. It's what I live and breathe every single day. I know the science. I contributed to the science. And so it's very, very confusing to me that people who know nothing about a species have this virulent hatred for what is essentially just a big raw dog. I mean, see Noonie. I mean, look at that's Noonie. Nunariak, and he's just hanging out in a kennel, you know, and he is not domesticated. This is an animal that is essentially a socialized wild animal. He's basically comfortable with me and my wife and sort of interested in other people. But I mean, how can you love dogs and hate wolves? I don't get it. We got our dogs from that same taxonomic tree. Their behaviors are 99% the same, only more intense with wolves. And in fact, I mean, if your hatred of wolves comes from, oh, they kill livestock, well, guess what? Domestic dogs kill vastly, multitudes more livestock than wolves do. So if you're going to hate wolves for killing livestock, then you ought to be hating dogs too. And if you dig into these guys' profiles, most of them have dogs. So where does that disconnect happen? Like, do they play too many video games? Or these guys that are frustrated that they, you know, didn't make the cut for like the military? I really don't know. And one of the guys who put out a comment last night, which I'm going to share about antifreeze, was in the Army. Like, where do these people even come from? Where do they come from? That's what I want to know. But I think it's important that, you know, they get exposed so that there's awareness that there's this kind of psychosis about wolves happening, and that, that those people, if they are inclined to commit crimes, that they get caught. And if they're inclined to, you know, threaten me with death for advocating for a species that I've invested my life in studying and understanding, then I hope they face consequences for it. And, you know, I have a lot of followers out there across these different platforms. You guys are amazing. I imagine most of you follow me because you're interested in what I do, my work with wolves and my knowledge of the species. And so this is how you can help, is by, you know, keeping track of that stuff, joining these various groups they're mainly on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you can request to join these groups, and then you can see and share. And you can interact with me there too. You'll see me posting a lot of science. I post science on Facebook. And, you know, I guess if you don't know, I'm Oliver Starr, Oliver the Wolf Guy, Executive Director of the Tahoe Wolf Center, 40 years of live, work, study, interaction with wolves and other carnivores. And, you know, my concern is that we have healthy landscapes, and healthy landscapes require predation, and wolves are an architect of environments where they live. They are a keystone species that plays a vital role in keeping an entire ecosystem healthy and intact. And if you love nature, you have to love all parts of nature. You can't pick and choose which parts of nature you'll love. So I'm going to sign off now, but before I post this video, I'm going to cut in a couple of these weird, ridiculous comments that you see. And hopefully, you know, you guys feel inclined to have a look. So thanks again. We'll talk to you on the next one. Hope you guys are all having a good weekend. This is Oliver the Wolf Guy signing out. Howls.